This is Lightning Power Lunch on the Lightning Audio Network with Dave Mishkin and Greg Linnelli.
It's a cardinal sin to be at home, have the lead in the last couple minutes of the game, and then to give it up with 2 minutes left. But it was, it was probably creeping up on us, just in the sense that in the third period really had nothing going on either way. It looked like in the end both teams went, through an emotional first game of the year, and it was like getting to the end and looked like it was content for let's go to overtime and see who gets the other one. So, but, the tough turnover, send them in on a 3/4-on-2, and, their guy makes a hard play at the net, good on him, and that was it. So that's it's more on us than them, and that was the disappointing part.
To a degree. You and I have always talked about this, partner, that the other team's got to make a play as well. Mm-hmm. And Sanderson did towards the end on
Great play.
I mean,
he's a really, really good young player.
Pinto goes hard to the net. I mean, it was just a good play by Ottawa, who's a good team. So let's throw that out there. This is Power Lunch on Lightning Radio. Greg Linnelli along with Dave Mishkin at Bolts Radio. We are taping, but we have questions that are already in. A lot to get to is the home opener. The first thing that I thought of, partner, when that game ended was something you and I maybe discussed yesterday on the show, is that, at times that home opener can be the outlier. That there's a lot of circumstances involved, more so in that game than in game 2 or in game 3. It's new, it's fresh, everybody's excited. You also don't know what you have to a degree. Preseason's one thing. Oh, by the way, 6-1 doesn't mean anything after that game, to an extent. But, first time you're really engaged with those group of players in a game that's meaningful against a pretty good team on the other end. So, with that being said, there were some positives. And a lot of it occurred, I thought, in the first period. And I thought throughout the game in Andrei Vasilevsky. And I talked about this with Brian, Chief, and JP Peterson on the last call, presented by Jack Daniels. And, Brian said he thought it was Vasi might have been their best player. I mean, Ottawa scored how many goals? 5. They could have had more, particularly.
Four on Vasi.
Particularly more in the second period, when I thought he had to make a tremendous amount of saves. And you and Ryan Malone, who was in for Phil yesterday, were, obviously calling the game, and you saw that firsthand. So, you didn't like the way the lead evaporated. There are some things you and I are going to discuss with our audience on this show. There were some positives. We saw what we talked about yesterday with Douglas deciding to let's get it on early on in my first shift. He did, and I think that excited the crowd. But I think I'm already seeing it on social media, so we do have to sometimes be the heartbeat of Lightning Nation, Bolt Nation. It is just one game. It is often the outlier. I don't expect this to be a recurring theme all year long for the Lightning, blowing leads, but it was disappointing, especially when you have a 2-goal lead on home ice, whether it's the first game or game 82, partner. You expect to win that game, or as we often say on the show, come away with points. And that didn't happen.
Yeah, I actually was extremely disappointed with the game last night. And look, I acknowledge there were positives, and I will agree with you that there were positives, and many of the positives that I took out of that game you kind of touched on, and I'm not going to dismiss those. So let me count the ways that I came out of that game feeling disappointed. First of all, you're right. I mean, blowing a 2-goal lead on home ice is never ideal. That is not great.
Correct.
But more significantly, and this is something that we talked about, I remember in the first couple of months of last season, the name of the game in the regular season is to get points. And the Lightning had a handful of games last year early, more early than late, or at least in the first couple of months, when they were tied in the third period and they ended up losing in regulation. And some of those games, talking about last year, the tie game became a regulation loss late in regulation. this fell into that category. You are 2 minutes away from getting a point, and they couldn't get it done.
Mm-hmm.
So it's game one, right? I mean, they got 81 more to play here, but to me, they surrendered a point unnecessarily last night, forgetting the 3-1 lead, but it's 3-3. You're heading into the third. I wasn't crazy about the second half of their game, and I'll get to that. Another reason why I was disappointed, but they were hanging in there. They were doing a better job of limiting chances against in the third period, and part of it, this was a great play by Jake Sanderson. I mean,
it was.
He steps up. He's a defenseman. He steps up on the Lightning side of the red line, intercepts the puck, and drives to the net. But the Lightning have their fingerprints on this too. Like, why is that slightly ambitious pass being made at this point? And then once Sanderson makes the interception, Vasi makes the first save. Where's the support?
Yeah.
You see the replay. It's not just Pinto put in the rebound. There was another Ottawa player there too. Where's the help? Where are the Lightning back checkers going to the front of the net to make sure if there is a rebound, that thing is getting cleared away? So like Coop said, a 3/4-on-2. You're in the last 2 minutes of a tie game in regulation. So that was disappointing. But the bigger picture, this was, if I were to give the Lightning a grade for their defensive play in this first game, it would be a very, very low grade. Very low. Even in the first period, which was by far their best period, and there was a lot to like with how they played in the first period, they were having turnover issues. They were giving up chances. I mean, how many good saves / great saves did Vasilevsky have to make in the first period alone?
Yeah.
There was that dust up after, a save where Tkachuk got involved. We had the penalties that were doled out. But that came at the end of a chance for Tkachuk.
Right.
Where Stützle drove wide and Tkachuk gets a grade A right in the low slot. You mentioned the chances against in the second period. I thought the Lightning did not defend well at all in the game. Even in the first period, where they did a lot of good things.
Yeah.
And, McDonough talked afterward. He said, turnovers were part of it for sure. But it wasn't always like the go-ahead goal, the Sanderson play. That was a turnover.
Yeah.
But it was more that 5-on-5, which was such an important bedrock for the Lightning's success last year. I thought that they were badly outplayed 5-on-5 by Ottawa, especially in the second half of the game. But Ottawa was just more in sync. They had more support. They broke out of their own zone more cleanly.
Yeah.
Ryan Mullen talked about this on the broadcast. Their dump-ins were smart. They did a lot of soft dumps where either the guy who dumped it could go and get it, or they put it in a position where they could go get it. The Lightning were way more disjointed when they had the puck. Like, they couldn't connect A to B to C. Some of that was Ottawa. I know Eric asked a lot of questions post-game about, it seemed like the space disappeared in the second and third, and there was an element of truth to that. But I think the Lightning also, their puck play was not conducive to doing a lot of good things with the puck. And when you are not doing good things yourself with the puck, you are inviting the other team to put pressure on you. So the third period, up until the very end of the third period, I didn't think there were a lot of chances for either team. And Coop kind of talked about that. He's like, it seemed like both teams were, heading to overtime. Now, Sanderson made a great play. That was a play to win the game, right? He was aggressive and made a play, to your point. But even as the Lightning were not giving up a lot of chances in the third period, you just felt that Ottawa was connected and the Lightning weren't. So, again, it is one game. I'm not going to overreact to one game. But where we talked about the outlier, it's more that this is the exciting game. You're not into kind of certainly not the dog days yet and not the kind of rhythm of the regular season. You want to play a very animated, exciting opener. And I think we saw that from the Lightning in the first period. They had a lot of jump. They scored 3 goals. We had the fight from Douglas and all of that. But again, moving forward, what are the bellwether signs that we are going to look for the Lightning? I have said this so many times. How you defend matters. McDonough said after the game, you score 4 goals, that should be enough to win. We have talked about that 2 to 3. Like hold the other team to 2 or less, probably going to be in good shape. Once you allow 3 or more, you're rolling the dice. The Lightning scored 3 in the first period alone. Like if this weren't right at the beginning of the regular season, we would say like 3 goals should be enough. But they could have given up way more than 4 plus the empty netter. Vasilevsky had to be very, very good to deny scoring chances. So it was just way too loose defensively for my liking. You add on top of that the fact that they blew the lead and blew a chance to get at least a point. That's why I came out of the game feeling, disappointed. And frankly, I had a sour taste in my mouth. But we can get to some of the positives.
Yeah, the
too.
power play.
The power play was a positive.
Had a couple of goals, which was nice to see, and we saw some movement. And maybe not traditional, Bolts goals we've seen on the power play before. Although I do like seeing Kucherov shoot, and that was impressive. And it was interesting on his goal. I don't know if you picked up on this. The exchange he had with Hedman before Kucherov shot. Kucherov wanted the one-timer back, and Hedman was late in doing it and didn't. And you saw Kuch kind of like, put his stick down. Sometimes you can tell his body language. Then Hedman gets it over to him, and it almost felt like he caught Ullmark by surprise with the shot because he beat him short side, correct?
Yeah.
It felt like he wasn't ready for it, but I think that is a great development when it comes to the power play. We know his genius with the puck passing, but I do think if he becomes a little bit more of a shooter on the power play, and however you want to quantify that, that's fine. But I think he can make up for any type of lost production the Lightning may feel like they're not getting from that left circle. They can make up for it with Kuch being more of a shooter. But it felt like on that first goal, there was a little bit more movement on the power play. The one they scored with Kuch shooting, a little more stationary, a little more traditional in terms of it's going through Kuch. But that's okay. I mean, you get a couple power play goals in a game.
And they scored a 6-on-5.
You should win. You should win. I mean, you get a couple. So one of the things we also are going to watch this year is how does the power play perform? At least in that game in the first period, it looked pretty good.
I agree. The power play looked good, and Kucherov scored his goal on a play that we have seen him do before. So he will shoot in that situation, which is not a one-timer, where he has it. He kind of angles toward the middle and snaps it. I've seen him score on that play, or at least shoot on that play before and score on that play before. I'm going to say one thing about what we saw from the Lightning's power play and Ottawa's penalty kill last night. Ottawa used a passive kill. Now, we've had this discussion on the show before about, like, you can build any penalty kill you want. Like, there's no only one way to do it. It's really about executing. And if you're going to have a penalty kill like Ottawa's kill, what you are saying is we are going to let Kucherov and company have the puck, but we are going to close off options. We're going to give him time and space. But with that time and space, we're not going to let him do anything dangerous with it. We're going to protect the lanes to the net. We're going to close off passing options. But we are not going to bull rush him. I did not think it worked very well for Ottawa last night. I thought the Lightning were able to pick apart the Sens penalty kill. And one of the big reasons why they were able to do that, they had time, right? We didn't see that against the Panthers. Against the Panthers, an aggressive kill, or Carolina, or pick an aggressive kill, it's a different approach. Like, Kucherov's not going to have the time to, like, hold on to the puck, angle toward the slot, dust off the puck and snap it in. That was the kill that they faced last night. Let's see how this power play does when they face an aggressive kill. But look, this is the kill that they saw, and the Lightning won that matchup. Not only did they score 2 power play goals in the first period, and on the first one, to your point, Gensel went to the other side. Gensel's at the left circle, and, I mean, we haven't really seen this play a lot, but they read what was open, and they executed. Bjorkstrand broke to the net and got open essentially at the back post, and Gensel got on the puck, and it was a slam dunker. The third power play, which they didn't get another power play until the third period, they didn't score on it. They had looks. Like they had opportunities to score. They had opportunities, unfortunately, to shoot, and they didn't shoot on that particular power play. That was 3-3 fairly early in the third. What time was that penalty? 2:23. Yeah. Their power play looked very, very good last night. But I think Ottawa's penalty kill didn't do what really you need to do if you were a penalty kill taking on the Lightning's power play.
Yeah.
So we'll see how they look moving forward. Interestingly, the Lightning's penalty kill, at least to me last night, also looked passive. And Ottawa was extremely dangerous on the 4 power play chances the Senators had. They scored on their first chance. They didn't score on opportunities 2, 3, and 4, but they had looks. I mean, Vasi was very busy during those kills, and many of those kills came in a row. In fact, They scored on their first one, Ottawa. Then the Lightning scored to make it 2-1. Then the Sens had the next 3 in a row, and a couple in the second period where they kind of took control of the game. So Ottawa used the power play effectively, even when the Sens didn't score. I felt their power play, because it was dangerous, helped them grab control of the game in the second period. So I agree. Like, the power play was a positive. They definitely won the matchup last night against the opposition penalty kill. Let's see how they do moving forward. But not every kill is going to give Kucherov time and space to do what he wants to do with the puck.
Some of that is, whether it's a passive or aggressive penalty kill, is your goaltender feeling pretty good? It's basically a one-on-one if you're doing passive,
And Olmark, he didn't have a chance on the Bjorkstrand shot, but the Kucherov shot, he missed it with his glove.
I felt like that's probably one he's got to make, and who knows from that perspective. Some observations on some individual players, and
yes,
I just want to bring this up because we talked about it. Actually, we had somebody listening to the show yesterday and said, "What are you going to be looking for?"
Yes.
Something. And I think you and I were discussing, depth is always going to be something we're going to be watching. I wanted to see some of the younger players, of course, that we've been talking about. Geeky on the fourth line, we kind of discussed that before the show. I don't know if that's where he needs to be, if he wants to be impactful. I know Brian was saying that I'm sure he's not happy being on a fourth line. He wants to score goals. Mm-hmm. And is he going to do that on the fourth line? Probably not. I thought Chaffee was engaged. I think you could tell he was trying to bring that physical presence. And I think he needs that element for his game to be successful. So I was okay with his performance. Didn't see a ton of Gonçalves. And that was a little disappointing because, again, it's one game. He did a lot of good things last year. We highlighted that. Probably made the biggest steps in his progression than any Lightning player. It also felt like that line was a little out of sorts. And maybe it was just preseason, didn't get a ton of reps, Hagel being out, some of those things. But they had some looks, partner, but I didn't think they were dangerous. And usually when you look at the second line for the Lightning, and specifically Hagel and Cirelli, you're thinking, Hagel maybe even gets a breakaway every other game. I didn't see a ton of that. And that will be interesting moving forward. I thought Moser was pretty good. I didn't have a problem with that. I thought Lilleberg was... Or not Moser,
you mean Crozier?
Crozier.
Yeah.
I thought he was pretty good.
Moser was great.
Moser looked good in a suit.
In the press box or wherever
he looked good in a suit.
Yes.
Boy, by the way, did he look smaller? We're standing right next to Jack Finley.
Yeah.
that was pretty noticeable. So I thought Crozier was pretty good. I thought Lilleberg was pretty physical.
Yeah, and he had a fight.
Yeah, he did
well
have
in
a
the
fight.
fight.
So I thought it was a mixed bag for some of the younger guys. Douglas, hard to gauge because I think he did what we thought he would do. But I'm also, how many minutes did he play? 5? 6?
Yeah, something like that. I don't have the game sheet up.
And look,
limited. We'll say limited minutes, and the Lightning spot, substituted for him. Like there were some sequences where they sent out Holmberg and Geeky in a different forward, depending on the situation.
So, do I think the Lightning can get by with one of their players on the fourth line playing that little? I don't know if John Cooper likes that necessarily, but if Douglas is in the lineup, unless he starts to do more things, that might be his peak, 5-6 minutes a night, and you're going to drop the gloves. So that was my observation with some of the younger players. I'm curious what you took away from guys we were kind of watching, because I know some fans wanted to gauge our viewpoint from that perspective.
So because I did not really care for the Lightning's 5-on-5 game overall, I think a lot of the guys, when you go down the list, you can say like they didn't really have a major impact on the game. And it's hard to look at a line 5-on-5 that really drove play. Now, some of that was, as I mentioned, particularly in the final 30 minutes, they were just not in sync, moving the puck up the ice. So it's hard to kind of, if you're not connecting the dots in terms of your puck play, it's hard to get those long, sustained, really productive offensive shifts. There were a few, but they were more few and far between. And if I were to say who was the most noticeable Lightning player 5-on-5, other than Vasilevsky, who, I mean, he's out there for all situations, I would say it was Oliver Bjorkstrand to me. He had a goal on the power play, but remember right after Ottawa scored the Zub goal that went off the post and hit Vasilevsky, like the line with Gord, Bjorkstrand, and Chaffee had a good offensive zone shift. Bjorkstrand had a chance in front. Ullmark had to make some tough saves. They were isolated, and a lot were on those power plays. And the Lightning also hit a couple of posts, although one was on the power play right before Kucherov scored. But it was really kind of isolated in terms of the pressure that they applied. So I'm hard-pressed, even where, Point, Kucherov, and Gensel all had multiple points, but, they did their damage for the most part in the power play in 6-on-5. Gensel and Point teamed up for the one 5-on-5 goal. But can we really say that Point, Gensel, and Kucherov drove play? They probably had more scoring chances than any other line. Kucherov had that chance in the second period where he got a feed from Point and he went backhand high, hit off the top of the crossbar, and went out of play. So why is that? Well, some of it was the Lightning as a team, I don't think, executed, and that was the word that we heard from John Cooper, that they didn't execute as well as they needed to. So it was hard for them to kind of build momentum any line or line to line. But also I wonder, like, I may be in the minority on this. Maybe other people were like, well, I didn't really notice Bjorkstrand. But what was one thing that we can say about Bjorkstrand's preseason? He played in a lot of games, Greg.
He did. Yeah, he did.
So like you say, I forget how you just put it, kind of, a lot of these guys didn't play a lot in the preseason. Mm-hmm. They just didn't get into games. Limited. Or, in the case limited, Hagel and Hedman were dealing with injuries, as was Holmberg. Holmberg only got into one game. It was the final game, which was, 322 penalty minutes. McDonough only played in one game because they held him out of the last two, right? And maybe it showed a little bit. I don't know. I didn't think McDonough and Chernak had the sort of game that really the Lightning are going to need them to play on a regular basis. McDonough got walked in the second period where he tried to make a play in the neutral zone. I think Brady Tkachuk got around him. That was an odd man rush. Vasi made a save on it. So I'm not trying to pick on these individual players. I just think the Lightning didn't really show their best for much of the game when we're into the meat and potatoes part of the game, whereas Ottawa did. I think Ottawa did show well, kind of once they got out of the first period and kind of settled into their game. They also, felt we're feeling good. They were like, we were down 3-1 on the road. We just tied it. They were building their game, but they were more noticeable, I thought, as a group. There were more individual players on Ottawa that were noticeable than on the Lightning. I think some of that goes to what was happening 5-on-5. The other thing I'll mention that, another problem that has plagued the Lightning at times, the long change in the second period.
Let's just say the second period.
Yeah, it was the second period. They didn't have a great second period. They had some chances in the first half of the second period.
Right.
Like I said, they were isolated. Kucherov hit the crossbar. Bjorkstrand had that opportunity. I think they only finished with 7 second period shots. I don't think they had a shot for maybe the last 10 minutes or whatever it was, as Ottawa grabbed control and Ottawa had a power play in that stretch of time too. But the tying goal from Pinto, they didn't get the line change done properly. So if you look at the shift chart,
Right.
McDonough was out there, but the other 4 guys went to the bench, and the change didn't happen quickly enough. Zub was able to hit Pinto, who was behind Radish.
Mm-hmm.
Is that Radish's fault? Maybe not. Like, he's trying to get back into the play. They didn't get the puck deep enough to get off the ice safely. The Lightning looked at it for offside. It was very, very close, I think. I actually thought it was offside when I saw it live, but clearly it was either too close or onside, and they decided not to challenge. So, again, details of the game. Second period is the period of the long change from the defensive zone. Now, earlier in the second period, the Lightning had this is one of the ones I remember, an offensive zone shift where they actually got to change all 5 players. With the puck, they held possession in the offensive zone. But we didn't see a lot of that last night. And the mistakes that they made, they made mistakes. It's not like every mistake they made ended up in their net because Vasi bailed them out a number of times, but they made just too many mistakes. Too many mistakes that were leading to high danger chances and ultimately too many costly mistakes. And just that is not a recipe for success. I mean, it's not. So, I'm not overreacting to one game. I'm just telling you what I saw last night and why I came out of it feeling like this is not the way the Lightning are going to need to play this year.
Look, it is for those who believe that preseason sets the tone for the regular season in terms of the regulars getting a decent amount of work. This is a good example of what they're talking about. If you believe that.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's that. I'm just telling you what I saw last night.
I don't know.
We're saying like a lot of the main guys for the Lightning, if they got into a game, it was one game.
Right.
And that was it.
I'm willing to live with that trade-off if it preserves them in some capacity towards the end of the year, into the playoffs, that, look, they only played in a couple of preseason games compared to 4 or 5. I'm okay with living with the consequences of potentially the first game not going well. Now, next year we're not going to have to deal with that because there are not going to be as many preseason games. Right. But I also expect, because the flip side to that is, the reason I believe that is because they have a veteran group.
Mm-hmm.
And that even though maybe they haven't played collectively for a big number in the preseason, they still should have muscle memory of what to do in certain situations and not forget how to defend or what got them to be a very successful team last year in the first place, that all of a sudden in the second and third periods things went a little differently. It was an uneven performance, but they were leading after one period. And typically the Lightning do find ways to win when they're not playing their best. That has been a hallmark of John Cooper's teams over the years, where, and look, maybe they have had to rely on the power play in some of those instances where they're not playing well, but Dave, they go 3 for 4 on the power play and they win, 4-3 in a game where maybe they're outshot, 34-14. I mean, we've seen games like that. Ottawa's a good team, don't want to take anything away. I think you hit the nail on the head. I mentioned it. It's disappointing. This team on home ice for the opener, 2-goal lead heading into the second, and you didn't get anything. We move on, and we get ready for the Devils tomorrow. We're not going to perseverate on this too much. We'll talk about it on this show. But I don't think we should call out any trends. That would be overreacting.
No, that would be overreacting. And I'm not saying this is going to be a trend. All I'm saying is what I saw last night is not going to be indicative of any kind of success in the regular season this year. And maybe I'm stating the obvious here. And also, I mean, let's take into account the opposition. I think Ottawa is expecting to take a step forward. And I was very impressed with how they played for a first game.
Yes.
In terms of their team play, right? I mean, after the first 30 minutes, the second half of the game, how many chances did they allow? Very few.
Yeah.
I mean, the one goal the Lightning got near the end of the game was, I mean, Cooch threw it to the net. It hit off Jensen and went in. I mean, that counts. But, I mean, we saw Ullmark get asked to make some tough saves in the early part of the game. He was not asked to do as much in the second half of the game. I think it's a credit to how the Senators played last night. But not every team is going to come out of the gates quite as tight, honestly.
100%. I think it's something that it's valid, and I think the opponent is always going to have something to do with the outcome, even to the point where the team that loses doesn't want to publicly acknowledge that. It's so funny in sports, and we'll get to some questions here. If you've ever noticed this, partner, leading up to the game, it's all roses and but, look, they're a really good team. And partner, if we don't defend, they're going to run us out of the building, or however you want to. We don't make the pitches, they're gonna have a field day hitting off us. And then after the game, you lose, and that one was on us. We didn't do what we needed to do. It wasn't so much what Ottawa did. We didn't execute. Well, listen, you made the mistake because somebody forced you typically into making that mistake. It doesn't happen. It's not every single instance, but look, you turned it over. Well, why'd you turn it over? Very rarely are you going to see a professional hockey player. It happens, but he's in his own end. He's bringing the puck up, and the puck just explodes off his stick, and it's a turnover, and the opposing team capitalized on it. That does happen, rarely, but maybe somebody poke checks. Maybe somebody just, like Sanderson did, at the end of the game. Now, was that a bad play by the Lightning? For sure, but that was a great play, too.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it, that's a hell of a play by a guy who made a huge, huge difference in that game late. So I think you have to keep that in mind. That is something we've talked about on this show. I know it gets a little uncomfortable for people to hear that, but I do believe in that. Lucas, my neighbor, says, no need to overreact to one bad game. Agreed. They look very rusty and out of sync past the first period adrenaline dump. Power play was encouraging, and Douglas was electric. Giving up 4 unanswered hopefully never happens again this season.
Yeah, giving up 4 unanswered is not ideal. Tough. And look, the Senators got a lucky break on their second goal. Shot hits the post. I mean, the Lightning hit 2 posts in the first period.
Did that, we were debating that a little bit. We don't think that got deflected, right? Vasi just didn't move, right? He didn't
I don't think he saw it. He was screened by Fabian Zetterlund. Actually, Malone thought it might have deflected off Zetterlund, but Zub got the goal. So he was screened. The puck got past him, but it hit the post. And it didn't hit the post and go in. It hit the post and hit Vasilevsky and went in.
That went in, right.
And that was a pretty big turning point. I mean, it's hard for me to say that had the Lightning gotten the next goal to make it 4-1, it would have been lights out just because they were loose defensively. So it may have turned into just a high-scoring affair. But there's no question that the Sens getting that second goal in the opening minute of the second period changed the complexion of what was going to happen moving forward. And the Senators had the better of the play in the second period.
For sure.
Especially in the last half of the second period.
Look, that's a team, too, we're going to keep an eye on. We've talked, we had that question, too, about, what are your predictions in the Eastern Conference, Western Conference, and I was of the opinion, partner, that, I think the teams in the Atlantic, at least, that you're used to making the playoffs are probably going to be there again. Look, one game, I know. Long way to go. But, look, the Lightning are who they are, and I haven't seen anything differently in terms of personnel that's going to make me drastically change that. But I do think the East is more wide open.
Mm-hmm.
And does that mean a team like Ottawa, who feels like maybe they've got more structure in place and are better defensively with the young talent that they do have, can be taking that next level in their progression as a team? Potentially. I don't know if there are any teams in the East like we see in the West. And again, off of one game, this is more of just preseason analysis. But I think a team like the Sens or the Devils, who we're going to see on Saturday, these are teams that maybe feel like it's not only our time to take that next step in our development, but this could be the year to do it, because the teams who are used to being at the top, they're still going to be there, but maybe the gap between these teams is narrower as well.
And maybe the Senators aren't even looking at the other teams. They're just like, we want to be better.
Yeah.
And let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah.
They have a good team. If you
they're a good team.
They have some high-end skilled forwards. We didn't even see Batherson last night because he's hurt. They have been, for several years, predating Travis Green's arrival, a very, very dangerous team in transition. Right. And we saw some of that last night. I mean, they scored the 3-3 goal in transition where the Lightning had the late change, let's say. And the go-ahead goal that was kind of sort of the winning goal was in transition. But if you just look at kind of the makeup of their team, I mean, Stützle is, we'll call him a high-end player. Brady Tkachuk certainly is a high-end player. Pinto, I mean, he missed half the year last year because he got into a little trouble with, I think it was gambling, right?
Right.
He had a half-year suspension. But, I mean, he is a very good player. He's a high draft pick. And I think he's had maybe injury problems too, but he looks healthy. I mean, he goes to the net.
He does.
He had a goal disallowed in the first period
fearless.
for a high stick that was barely over the crossbar, but it was over the crossbar. But where was he? At the net. Where did he score the goal to make it 4-3? The net. Breakaway. Went straight line to the net. He's a very, very good player. But even beyond that, like the issue for Ottawa when they had a high skill guys, younger guys, was keeping the puck out of their own net. So they got Ullmark, who has played well for them.
Yeah, right.
But even more than that, this Sanderson has blossomed into one of the best defensemen in the league. I mean, is he top 5? I don't know about that. Not yet, anyway.
But he
is one of these guys. They are going to put a lot on his shoulders. Remember those years when Thomas Chabot was like leading the NHL in average ice time per game,
right.
like 28, 29 minutes.
Yeah, right.
Well, Sanderson plays more than Chabot now. Sanderson's a little bit younger, although Chabot is not old. He's just been in the league longer.
For a while.
Sanderson went to college, so I mean, I think he turned pro a little bit later. They are going to lean on Sanderson is a stud. That's what I'm saying.
He's their horse.
He is their horse.
Yeah.
He is great defensively. He is like terrific offensive instincts. He plays power play. He's on their main power play, penalty kill. But I heard Brian Engblom on the last call, presented by Jack Daniels, last night.
I love it.
We need to talk about Reef Rum, too.
We do. Steve just texted me.
Yes.
Did you read it?
And Brian said he talked to Travis Green. You and I were on the air, but Brian talked to Travis Green at the end of their skate yesterday, and Green was like, our best D pair by far is Sanderson and Zub. People are like, who's Zub? Well, Zub has been in the NHL for a few years with Ottawa. He's a very good player.
Yeah.
And like Sanderson Zub is kind of like Chernak McDonough for the Lightning with more upside offensive potential, particularly from Sanderson. But Zub himself had a goal and an assist last night. So you can see that the pieces are kind of in place there for Ottawa, and they have a coach that has come in and, instilled a system that he has buy-in, and they're executing.
I think you're right, because Brian did mention that, because he said he was talking to him, right, the head coach, Green.
Yeah, Travis Green,
He was basically saying, like, when I first came in, it was just kind of a mess.
Well, he reworked their defensive zone,
But that's a big deal. It was also interesting to hear Brian talk about, and I don't recall how we got into that conversation, and I don't know if it was he wanted to see a little bit more from Hetty in terms of go, go, go. And just sometimes when you stick to your system, you handcuff guys, and then at times, like, you need to just unleash a Victor Hedman to make a play. The system is the system, which is great.
I'd like to see Hedman against a passive kill like Ottawa's. I would love to see Hedman just bomb away. Like, he had some chances to shoot on the power play, and he kind of was like, I'm going to pass it instead.
Yeah.
So... yeah. Look, they'll learn from it.
They'll work that out.
They need to get sharper. I'm sure they expect they will be sharper, and we'll see how they look on Saturday. By the way, programming note, because Monday's game in Boston is an afternoon game. This is our final Power Lunch until next Tuesday. So when we talk again on Power Lunch, the Lightning will play Saturday, tomorrow against the Devils, and Monday against the Bruins.
That's a 1 o'clock game,
Tuesday.
Right?
Yeah, we'll talk Tuesday before Lightning and Caps.
I mean, look, we love talking hockey. We pressured the higher beings that we wanted to do a show at 9:00 in the morning, but they said, "Guys, we want to preserve you," and I said, "Okay, I can't."
Yes.
I can't wrestle.
I'm
with
still
the
waiting
higher
for
ups.
Steve to say, "Yeah, you guys are going to be working on the weekends."
Right.
for Power Lunch.
Don't plant that seed, partner. Don't.
Yeah,
plant
we did that in the
seed.
playoffs last year. Just the playoffs didn't last very long for the Lightning.
That's right. Tonight, enjoy some Reef Rum, smooth, versatile, now pouring at every bar at Benchmark International Arena. Some people probably had that last night. Order a Tropical Wave or a Lightning Mule and taste why fans are switching. Reef Rum is a premium craft Florida local rum built on authenticity, quality, and easy drinkability. Ask for Reef Rum by name. Go Bolts, enjoy responsibly. And I would love for people to let us know when they do purchase that, because you can say you heard it on this show. And
Yes.
this is what we call funneling the system, partner. Listen, react. This is what we do. Speaking of reacting,
Yes.
I don't think would you agree that our good friend Al might be at the top when it comes to reacting to a win or loss? He's very passionate.
Have we even heard from Al yet
Well-
this year? Did Al kind of stay
I
dormant?
haven't. You know what ends
until
up
the
happening?
First game in the regular season.
Al typically messages me on X,
Oh, okay.
and a lot of times for the show, people who tag Bolts Radio and you are the ones we read, and I don't have a chance sometimes individually to go through mine. But I did see this one
So
coming.
Al's voice has been silenced so far by
We
you,
will
Greg.
never, and it wasn't
Correct that
intentional, Al. Al
immediately.
probably gets more love on this show than many. But he said, what you saw last night is what teams have figured out. The Lightning are slow and predictable, and if you pressure the puck, Tampa Bay will turn it over. Now listen, before you jump in there,
Go
I'm
ahead.
not going to tell you overreacted, Al, but that's a little overreaction. They had some problems last night, and we articulated that. But if you're going to have that type of reaction, win or loss, for an 82-game season, I'm going to get exhausted reading these come playoff time because there's so much up and down. I want to keep a level head on this, Al. There are points that I'm sure you're going to bring up and that you're alluding to in your post that no doubt need to get cleaned up, for sure. But it is a long season, and the Lightning, I think, deserve the benefit of the doubt to figure out the process a little bit more. But I don't think they're slow. I don't think teams have figured them out. This was a top 5 team in a lot of categories last year. So if you're going off the Panthers game and the Panthers series, and they figured them out, maybe that's a different discussion. But collectively, I'm not there yet, partner.
So I'm going to share a story Chief has told for many years, and I believe it was Bob Gainey, not Bobby Clark. Both of them at one point were running things with the old Minnesota team, Minnesota North Stars. This is when Chief was working with the Flyers, and the Flyers, were coming in to play the North Stars, or Chief had seen the North Stars, and he played with Bobby Clark, he knew Bob Gainey. I forget which one it was that he talked to.
Yeah.
But Chief was like, boy, your team looks so fast. And I think it was Gainey. Gainey said, we're actually not fast. We just pass the puck really well. So I think that this goes to the heart of what Al noticed last night, which is if you are not executing with the puck, you are not making the right play or putting the puck in an area where you can maintain possession, and like I was saying earlier in the show, connecting the dots, you are going to look slow. You are. Ottawa looked faster last night because the Senators were in sync.
Yeah.
They were putting pucks in areas where they could retrieve or hold on to the puck. They had a lot of support. And so that is not about team speed, nor is it about, and you know how I feel about this, the whole figure it out. Like there's some secret code to determine how to break down the opposition. The opposition has had all the success, and nobody, with all of the video out there, all of the time spent game planning, nobody could figure it out until, we've cracked the code. Now we know how to play against this team, and all of a sudden that team can't do anything. No, it's not really that. Yes, there are tendencies that teams have, but the game moves so quickly. The margin between kind of being on your toes and not being on your toes can be, first of all, it's narrow and you can lose it pretty quickly. So it's not an easy thing to execute at a high level. These are the best players in the world, so we expect that of them. But the team on the other side is also potentially executing maybe at a higher level. I think that was the difference last night. The Ottawa Senators in 5-on-5 play executed at a higher level than the Lightning. That's why they had an advantage, and I keep saying this, really in the second half of the game in terms of flow of play 5-on-5. That does not mean that the Lightning all of a sudden got quote-unquote slow. In fact, teams that don't have a lot of foot speed, to Chief's point in his story, look, if you don't have a lot of foot speed, you can still play fast if you're playing in sync. But I would point out, like, Ryan Malone elbowed me in the shoulder during the game last night. In the third period, Braden Point, like, burst down the wing. And, like, it looked like he was going to the net, and the Sens recovered just in time to kind of take away that path. He went behind the net.
Right.
But Malone got excited, right? He was like, hey, Then he was like, I elbowed you there. Sorry. I'm like, no, that's okay. You got excited. So, like, don't try and make the argument that Braden Point isn't fast. He is fast. But if Braden Point is not getting the puck in an area where he can use his speed, or he's not giving the puck to somebody where they can use their speed, the team is not going to play at a fast pace. That's what it is, to me anyway. But we can respectively disagree, Al, until you see something that you like, and then usually Al is like, I really like what I saw here. But
yeah, I mean, I get it. There are reasons why we have this show. It's to interact with our audience, and they have things to get off their chest.
It's a great example of what we have been talking about with penalty kills.
Yeah.
So you can build any penalty kill you want. There are passive kills that are among the best in the NHL. It's less about kind of what you want to do and more about how you are doing it.
Sure.
So we'll see if the Lightning are a little bit more in sync 5-on-5 tomorrow.
Let's see here. This came yesterday, Chris, during our show, and this was a lot about Douglas and why he was brought in. Chris says, Greg, you nailed it today about the new pickup. Let's be serious. Florida bullied this team big time the last 2 years. We had nobody they feared would take off the gloves. Now, hopefully, we have that enforcer that will keep teams honest. I think there's truth to that. I'm just curious. He's going to have to show he can play more than 5 minutes. I just don't believe that this Lightning team, the way John Cooper wants to play, is going to have a guy play that little. Mm-hmm. I mean, even when Pat Maroon was, I don't want to say when Pat Maroon was in his heyday, but, I mean, is it fair to say he was getting 8 to 10 minutes a night, maybe even more?
More than that. I mean,
Now,
it's not like he only was on the fourth line with the Lightning. He saw third-line minutes.
Pat Maroon scored 126 goals in his career.
He played with McDavid. Yeah, yes. Absolutely. Here's the thing I'll say about Douglas that is kind of sort of getting lost in all of this when we look at how many minutes he played last night. Last night was his first NHL game.
Yeah, it's a good point.
I mean, I think
McDonough
point. Said post-game, because he was asked about Douglas, he's like, we're excited to see him grow or something. I'm paraphrasing. Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, the idea is that he is going to benefit from being in the NHL and allowing his game to grow. I don't think he's going to grow anymore in terms of height. I think that ship has sailed. He is 6'9". I saw he was only the third player in NHL history to be 6'9". I believe Chara was 6'9". I don't know who the other one was. But he has an opportunity to grow his game. And maybe as he does that, he will turn into a player that, is not going to be playing 5 to 6 minutes or whatever it was last night.
Let me see. And that's
Remke. Okay.
Yeah. That's right.
I don't think the Lightning maybe only had one game where he's been in against them, if that.
Yeah, I think you're right.
We just haven't seen a lot of him.
Al also wanted to know your thoughts on the 3 goalie situation. is JoJo more likely to clear waivers because of his bigger contract? So this was a day ago that, again, we didn't get to. This was Al who had some questions that were circling.
Yeah, I'm really in the dark on this, Greg. And I mean, I haven't really asked anyone, like, what is the reasoning behind the third goalie? First of all, it's tough in practice, because there are only 2 nets. It's one reason why teams tend not to carry 3. Now, next year, I know that this is something that you were very happy to hear about. The CBA, the new CBA, is adding a clause where you can carry almost not the e-bug, not some guy who's working some job who played goalie back in the day and is like brought in case one team loses both goalies in a game and that player goes in. This is somebody who is still like playing hockey regularly, but they would probably not be like the 4th string, or 4th in the depth chart. We'll see who these players are, but basically teams can carry a third goalie. And I think it's unrelated to like cap implications or anything like that, so that you don't have to rely on the e-bug. I know you've been outspoken talking about that it's something that makes sense. So that's going to go in next year. I'm not sure how they're going to work practices. That third goalie probably is not going to see the net a lot in practices because the other 2 probably want to see as many pucks as they can. So I would just say wait and see. Let's see if Copley continues to be kind of scratched, or if he's backing up, or if he gets into a game.
Fair points. Don't know how that's going to play out. I think here's another one. Do you expect Finley to be in the lineup tomorrow night against Devils? I do. I could see him in the lineup and Douglas out. I think there could be a little bit of that. And Brian gave props to Cooper for putting Douglas in, kind of reading the moment and saying, look, I'm sure this guy was really amped to go. And even though he hasn't had time to process everything, kind of rewarding him, even though hasn't been here. Opening night is a big, big deal. Finley, I've got to think, is ready to go on Saturday. That would be my guess.
Lightning. I'm not sure this guy took a lot of offensive zone faceoffs for Ottawa, where the Lightning maybe needed a right-handed defenseman. The Lightning, I mean, at the end of the night, faceoffs were 30-25 Ottawa, but a guy who did really well for them in the circle was Eller. I got to look up his final numbers in the circle, but he took a lot of defensive zone faceoffs to the left of Ullmark, where he was on a strong side, and he won a lot of them. He was a good pickup. We talked about that. He's playing on their 4th line. I will actually look up his faceoff stats. So I don't know that Finley being in would have made a difference last night, because I don't know if Finley would have taken some of those ozone faceoffs, even if he had been on his strong side. But to answer the fans' question or your conclusion, I tend to agree with you. I would certainly not be surprised if Finley is in the game tomorrow. Eller went 10-4 in the circle, and most of those were taken in the defensive zone. Good pickup for Ottawa.
I would agree, 100%. At Bolts Radio, if you want to get involved in the conversation, you can. Let me see here, partners. Some other tweets that are coming in. This is from Dale. Is it time for the NHL to increase the roster size to 26 players and eliminate long-term IR and IR? Kind of a random question, but a good one.
Yeah. I hadn't really thought about that, Dale, but the fact that is not in the next CBA, it is not going to be happening. So I think the point is that, the shenanigans maybe with the LTIR, they've tried to address that with the playoff rule that's going into effect this year. Maybe Dale means something else by it. If that is not what you meant, Dale, you can write us back and clarify. I thought it was a little troubling, noteworthy, that Gergensons was not even on the bench last night. We heard his week to week, but usually injured players are acknowledging the crowd. I mean, Nick Paul was there, right? So let's monitor that situation. I mean, he's definitely going to be out a while because Coop said week to week, but he is not on LTIR. Paul's the only
Right.
player on LTIR for the Lightning. Those checks against the boards can be, I mean, sometimes players just, bounce right back up, but particularly where like the top of the dasher that juts out, if you're hitting that, that is not something that you want to be like pushed into. Let's leave it at that.
It was a chippy game last night, I felt like.
In the first,
And maybe not surprising.
I mean, Brady
Tkachuk was in it.
Yeah.
That's what he does.
He plays the way he plays, and he and his brother share that. I feel that Brady, at least against the Lightning, tends to stir the pot a little bit less than Matthew. And maybe I'm just thinking as Matthew hit Gensel, at the end of game 3, and there's everything that goes on with the Panthers. But I really like Brady Tkachuk as a player. Very well-rounded player, great leader. Another guy who goes to the net, mixes it up. He can fight, score, defend, win faceoffs.
A little bit better than his brother? A little bit better than his brother?
I don't know about better.
Yeah, just kind of.
I mean, when all is said, Matthew's had a very, very productive career and clearly been a winner, right? So
They both target Hagel, I can tell you that. I don't know.
Well, remember, it wasn't that long ago. Matthew Tkachuk was on what maybe was the best line in hockey.
Yeah.
With Johnny Gaudreau and Lindholm in Calgary. So,
do you think it feels, I'm going to be watching more of this because he doesn't back down. It feels like a lot of teams get annoyed with Brandon Hagel, right? I mean, just the way he plays, I think. And I don't think he gives it right back. Always willing to defend his teammates, too. Like, if somebody's taking a run at Cirelli, Hagel's coming right in. And it's vice versa. But it's interesting watching that dynamic on the ice. And Tkachuk making his way to Hagel and Hagel not backing down. And I will say this though. Let me be honest, and we can close the show with this. I don't know if he has a target on his back, and you do not want to take away what he brings to the table with his aggressiveness and his intensity, because I think that's what makes Brandon Hagel a very special player. I do think, a little like I've brought up with Eric Chernak, whether it's blocking shots or whether it's engaging physically when he's had some health issues, I do think you need to pick your spots. I think you need to be a little bit more measured. Maybe that's the word. Because the other teams come back at him pretty good. And I don't want to say they're targeting him, but I do think Brandon Hagel is a really big part of what this team does. I want him on the ice. And if that means sometimes walking away a little bit more, I'm okay with that. Very, very similar to Chernak. I mean, now some will say, well, that's the way they play. You can't temper how they play. I fully acknowledge that. I'm talking about the extra stuff.
Yeah.
You're around and like guys swing at you and their gloves are on. That's impactful. And guys are, cross-check. I mean, we saw what Greer did to Hagel. I mean, that was kind of out of the blue.
Yeah.
He almost has to have his head on a swivel.
Did you know what Malone said last night? Malone would know.
What did he say?
He's like, a gloved punch often will do more damage than an ungloved punch, because when a guy takes off his glove, you know that a punch is coming.
Yeah. Good point.
You're not always expecting it when a guy has a glove on and throws a punch.
That's a great point. Plus, it's just
that came from
impactful.
Bugsy, not me. I've never been in that situation.
Bugsy, first off, looks like he can still play.
Oh, yeah.
Does he not? I mean,
well,
great shape.
He started this foundation for military members and first responders. I'm like, oh, that's great. What do you? He's like, well, we teach them like jujitsu. I'm like, well, clearly that's why. I mean, I said, you're retired. A lot of retired players tend to gain weight. Looks like he has gotten
most people
svelte.
tend to gain weight as you get older.
That is true.
I mean, he is.
Yes,
he looks like he can
very
still play.
Fit. Yeah.
I also think he plays in some sort of league. I don't know if it's been disbanded or not. We can look that up. Where it's a bunch of just NHL players that it's almost like glorified pickup, but it's kind of a more structured. And I remember reading about it and how
they're getting their
keeping
competitive juices flowing.
Yeah,
kind of.
I mean, it was a little bit more than just, hey, we're going to the rink for 2 hours, your beer league. It was a little more competitive than that. And I will say this about Ryan Malone. I remember after his first year in Pittsburgh, he wasn't much of a fighter. I think he took lessons, classes, whether it was boxing, he became a very good fighter.
Mm-hmm.
That was part of his game. Like, that's what made him attractive. And he also played on a line with Malkin.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where, all right, if I'm going to play on a line with that guy, I also have to take care of some business. He became a very good fighter. And so I'm not surprised he's got a little bit of that jiu-jitsu, whatever, but he knows how to handle himself.
Yeah.
And that was pretty evident, I thought, during his hockey career as well. But that always wasn't the case. And good for him filling in last night also, too.
Yeah, we hope Phil's feeling better.
Hopefully he's better.
He got caught out in the rain, I guess.
Yeah.
You and he both had a flat tire.
Yeah, that's just
must be going around.
Not good. Something's going around. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But, but we'll do it tomorrow.
Do we know, Steve, is Phil going to be with us tomorrow?
Maybe.
I guess we'll find out.
We'll call him. We should have called him today. Phil.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, Monday, no show.
Haven't heard yet.
Okay. We're on the airwaves at 12:30 with the pregame.
Yes.
And then 1 o'clock, that game on Monday. But tomorrow, 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock will be the game call. You will be doing it regardless of who you're with. And I will talk to you. I will talk to you in the booth.
See you tomorrow.
Great job. Great week. Dave Mishkin. Radio voice of the Lightning, Steve Versnick. Thank you. Our engineer and producer, Jared Johnston, as well. Always appreciate his help, and everybody who listened this week at Bolts Radio. Hit us up on X if you want to participate. I am Greg Linnelli. You've been listening to Power Lunch on Lightning Radio.